I know that you are all very busy people, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Adam Ibrahim. I am a member. I'm a staff with the California Teachers Association Instruction and Professional Development Department. I have the honor of working today with Anna Cordero, who is a middle school educator from the California Virtual Academies, and also a member of the California Virtual Educators United. And she is going to be sharing some of her wisdom and experiences and strategies for helping you organize your secondary virtual classroom. But before I hand it off to her, I would like to talk to you about a couple of things, provide you with some information about the event, and then talk first about schools and communities first. So just a short message here. Schools and Communities First provides a historic opportunity to correct the period of disinvestment in our schools and communities ushered in by Prop 13 and to ensure big corporations pay their fair share. You know, Prop 13 impacts have been multi-generational. It has stood for 40 years, and we now have the opportunity to make significant changes for the next generation. And so we have included a link here. I will pop it in our chat to the CTA toolkits for schools and communities first. It's a place where you can go and learn more, access media materials and talking points, and help bring $12 billion each year into California schools and communities by closing tax loopholes for big corporations. All right, so next slide. Cool. All right, so where are you? What is this thing that you have like, oh, can we go back one, please? Yeah, distance learning support series, cool. So where have you landed? What is this thing that you have sort of navigated your way? If you have arrived here, you've made it through the registration process and the Eventbrite and all of those pieces. So what happened is we've spent the last few months listening and learning to the experiences of educators, kind of going through the chaos starting in March with COVID, and some of the sort of lack of support that they've experienced on the part of districts and LEAs in helping teachers and educators meet the demands of distance learning. So we've been listening to our union presidents, we've been listening to our members, we've been listening to members of the Instructional Leadership Corps. And so they provided input that developed a series of topics that has formed this sort of distance learning support series event. And what it is it's 2 weeks of practitioners sharing best practices with other practitioners to help you prepare, to help you get ready for launching your distance learning classroom in August or September, depending on when your start is. And so what I'd like to do is just conceptually. So it works a little bit differently than events of times past. And what I mean is that we're going to have sort of a focus. You know, this launch is sort of focusing on all the domains. Maybe you saw that on the charts and the materials that we've shared. But you know, kind of going forward, we're going to have a focus, and then we want it to feel pretty free flowing. So you're going to get a reminder every morning at 8 a.m. telling you what session is happening that day. You can either attend, not attend, choose to attend them all, or choose to only attend a couple. And we'll keep you connected with ongoing offerings that we have through the CTA IPD department. And moving forward, they will generally fall into sort of one of the buckets that you see here. So we're going to go deeper in subsequent series with rich content and effective pedagogy, with culture engagement and social emotional learning, with equity, access, agency, and advocacy to include supporting student groups, as well as sort of system support improvement. And all of the topics chosen within those domains come directly from you all. So stay tuned. And so with that, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand it off to our wonderful educator, presenter, leader, Anna Cordero. So Anna, it is all yours. And thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me. We're going to talk about a few things as I get started. All right. So we're going to be talking about setting the stage and doing some things like that. But before we start, I just wanted to highlight a few things about me, and forgive me as I turn off this video to make sure that you guys can hear me and that we have the materials and everything is free flowing, and so we're not having those disruptions of tech. So I originally, like all of you, when I went through the teaching credentialing program, I was ready. And I, as an educator, my tendencies is in classroom management, in planning and mapping out, is that I was the person in the room. So when you think about walking into that classroom, my management style, the way in which I presented things had to do with where I placed myself in the room. I always taught from the back of the room towards the board so students could, you know, make sure their eyes were on there when I had disruption, when I was concerned about behavior, cheating, all those things. I was the person in the room. And so I would just meander my way through. When I transitioned from brick and mortar into a virtual teaching setting, I, like all of you, had that moment of hyperventilation and was just like, all of my faculties, all of the things I left on my intuition, my best practices, all had to be reimagined in a way that's here now. And so I just wanted to let you guys know that my heart goes out to you. I totally understand where we've been, particularly with COVID, where you're doing something in the middle of the year rather than the beginning like this. I know that there's a lot of concerns about how do we transition, particularly when so many of our districts, so many of our local LEA agencies are giving us a lot of different pieces. So really, let's take some time with this presentation to really dive in deep. And what I'm doing is showing you what I did, right? I had to reimagine how to educate my students now that I am not the person in the room. And so these are the ways in which I transitioned, and it's falling on what you already have in your skill sets, things that you already know, that tools you already have. We're just being more intentional and less intuitive in that transition. So we're in August, we're getting ready for our students to start. We're hearing from the district beginning plans of what we need to do. And so whatever those guidances are, here are action steps you can do, right? Setting the stage. You can organize your platform in which students are accessing their learning. Most, from what I'm hearing, is most people are using Google Classroom. You might be using Canvas, you might be using Schoology, but making sure that that platform is whatever that platform is, that you're ready, and it's a uniformed access for all of your students. Having a schedule, teaching times at the same time that they're needed, when assignments are assigned and due, office hours, those kinds of things. Those need to be patterned just like our bell schedules were when we were teaching in front of our students. Communication. How are students and families going to communicate with you? Are you having them call you? Are we doing emails? We need to have time frames of communication. For example, Monday through Friday office hours where you are contacting them is between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. We're creating those parameters so everyone knows what the rules are and how we're accessing things, right? And so whatever that is, this is really beneficial to create that schedule, that structure that can often not feel that way when we transitioned in spring. Okay, initial contact. So an email introduction letter, I always do, especially because typically that would be your first day of school or your back to school meetings, particularly with our 7th grade and our 9th grade teachers. That often happens where we're doing a little bit more of that introduction, but having that email of introduction to your students in particular, we're front loading them with who we are and what the expectation is for the year. I really like this because it's tangible for them, right? Our students right now are all sheltering in place for the most part, since with limited activities, they're starting to hear things. This is their reminder, so they can keep coming back to that. I give both professional and personal information, so they have a brief understanding of who I am and what I expect. Second thing is brief iteration of how the first week of school is going to go, right? This is a great place to put something like a Flipgrid if you're utilizing that, a little YouTube embedded video, something that's fun. So that way students are knowing what the first week of school is going to look like versus what you're going to be doing in the weeks and months subsequently. Providing hyperlinks is powerful. It's the same thing. Think of your links as your worksheets, right? When you hand out a paper, you hand out a primary source, you provide the reading for the day, those kind of things. That needs to be links and resources information, contact information, and then where you're gathering student information. I provide this initial contact in an email with this information. I also add it to the platform. And then when I start making those first calls, all of these pieces are together, because instead of, you're getting tons of information with that, those things. And those are things that when you, if we translate it to brick and mortar, you had those in when your first day of school and you introduced with your students and you did some of those getting to know you activities. You did this information gathering in those icebreaker activities. This way you're front loading that so you have the data. And since we are all in this COVID-19 world, it's really powerful to have Google Survey as an ally or some other informational gathering, because you can see each individual student's response and it's logged. That data is there for you, to where, you know, in the classroom, you notice Johnny because Johnny was in third period all the time and he always comes in this way and this is where a seat is and those kinds of things. So that's where that piece is. Let me pause for just a second. Yes, so some things that we're talking about, absolutely, we can get some of those pieces out. Having Google documents that are attached to this, I always suggest that this is a part of it. For the initial contact, I make these things separate and I have them separate entities in the email altogether, right? Because I'm sending it both to student and families. Secondary is I'm putting it on that platform. You can put that on a Google Doc altogether. You can put it in your week. You can put it in a separate topic, any of those things. All right. Yeah. Okay, so first day of school activities. You already know this. You have your icebreakers and things. We're just reimagining them, right? I really like things that get kids to start talking on the mic in particular. We know our secondary students don't tend to want to be on video or on the mic, right? And so things like, would you rather, right? Would you rather eat frog legs or slugs? Having scavenger hunts. I've created scavenger hunts where students have to look for certain items within Google Classroom, within the platform that they need to access for Q1. And that's really powerful, because then a lot of these questions that students often ask once they've kind of gone over their access to our content, this is super powerful. Getting to know you slides. I like doing this where students talk about all about me, where they present. Typically this could be done in an advisory / homeroom kind of sessions. That way you're starting to build that community because students are presenting this. High interest content such as TED Ed talks are great icebreakers, because it can really drive a topic. So if you're a science teacher, you know, the first day of school, a good thing is like, there's a TED talk on halitosis, and that's something super important, particularly with our high school students who really want to make sure they have good breath. So these are pieces. Whatever platform you're using for these first day of school activities, make sure within that initial contact, the students know how to utilize it. So for example, they know how to type in the chat for Zoom. They know how to use you're giving them whiteboard access where they're doing these would you rathers. They're typing in group chat, they're typing in whole chat. You're letting them grab a mic, whatever that case may be. All these activities you already have, you can very easily translate into the classroom setting. So those are just some ideas. Okay. So here's one of mine. So when I do an all about me here I am. And I talk about myself. Here's myself and my babies. We talk about how much I am obsessed with all things coffee. I really spend a lot of times with my friends and family working out. I just bought a house, so I'm working on my home. I love all things Disney, and Hello Kitty is my most favorite. These are my babies. So this is Kitty. Kitty is 10, Titus is 4, and Thaddeus, which we call Bear, is 14 months. That's how quick these presentations can be. When you do this on the first day of school, and then you have signups in a Google survey or some other, or Sign Up Genius or some other method, students, particularly with your advisory groups where you're building those communities, you can be doing this in those different sections, and that will help guide you if you're going to be doing distance learning, jigsaw, group work. If you want to do peer-to-peer tutoring, I know when I taught at the high school level, I did a lot of that. This is a great way for students to feel that sense of community because they can see and be about one another. All right. Continuing on. Okay, so Google Classroom. So I made a mock classroom, which is very simplistic, which I'm going to show you separately as well, so you can kind of see, right? So you're going to be giving that classroom code. A lot of you guys have done this already, but this is how what I like about Google Classroom, unlike the other platforms, is that you can put embedded in the system reminders for your students when they're missing work. So it's very passive. It gets sent to both the student themselves gets email reminders when they're missing work, or if you've graded work, and also their primary contact. So if mom is the primary contact or grandma is the primary contact, they also get an email. It's a great way for you, particularly since now we have ADA, we are grading, we're doing all these pieces, for students to get that direct feedback from you that, hey, this is done. And also, so you're not spending extra time following up with why Johnny and Susie and Gail have not finished their work. So let me switch over really quick to this piece. So this is what it looks like. This is how the students would see it here, that I've added all these pieces in. Here's what when I click on classwork, this is how it's organized. You can have it can attach their Google Classroom, so it has those reminders. This is super helpful. So I split up into topics, and I always do this. I do a welcome, so they have that. This is my secondary placement of that email that I just told you that we sent out, right? They're all right here, as you can see. And so you can see all the different sheets that I've added. You can add as many things as you would like to that. Here is, like, if we open up here, you can see my welcome letter, right? And all the pieces in here. So you know what we're doing. The formatting silly, sometimes that happens. You can see information sheet, those kind of things. My Symbaloo page, which is my support document, I'll be showing you that later. But then they always know because this stays here. Second thing to keep life in order, because we do this implicitly because we always end up writing the date on the board. We're doing it explicitly here where we're saying this is week 1 for my students. August 20th and the 21st is when they start. And then I have their exit ticket ready for day 1 live session. This is so they can finish this, and then their student interest form, which they can complete, which gives us lots of information on who they are and what they're about. Questions about anything?
There's a question from Teresa about what programs did you use to write up your welcome letter? It looks so good. And then we also have a question about somebody who said that you sound super clear, and what mic are you using?
Okay, so number 1, things that I use Microsoft Publisher. So think about it as when we made those for those welcome letters and things, we make those flyers, right? That's what I do for that. And then I just modify it each year. I use the same background. I know that Teachers Pay Teachers have some of those blank formats. I know that if you did a Google search, you're going to be able to find a ton of these things. Second thing, earbuds. So I am all in on as efficient and as fiscally responsible as possible. These are Skull Candy earbuds. So they're the ones you use back in the day when we could still plug into our iPhones. That's the ones I use. You can get them on Amazon. I mean, I think I found these at Ross, but I love them because they were the original, like, super good, right? The premium athletic earbuds. And I think these cost me like $7.99. So yeah. So here is the student interest survey, and I'm listening. I see some of those. When we go back to classroom, this is all I'm doing. So when we go back, when we're here at classroom, this is a student interest survey. They have to turn it in. I can see right here who is supposed to turn it in. For all of you who are secondary teachers who are teaching multiple sections, my suggestion is to do one of two things. You either have a classroom and you gather each grouping by section. So all your world history is in one, all your US history is in another, all your econ is in yet another, or do it just like you would by period, right? Your first period kids, so your A group, your B group, your C group, your D group, your E group, because then you're going to be able to, and you can very easily make 3 or 4 classrooms that way. Does that make sense? That way, just like whatever you use digitally, like HomeLink or any of those communications that you use, those students are already broken up that way. You can work with your tech department and upload your students by those groups, and it will help you feel more manageable. So when we're looking here that I should have 35 students in this section to do my student interest form due by the end of August 21st, and that hasn't happened, then I know I can click very easily because I will know my students by those groupings, just like you knew your students by first period, second period, third period, fourth period, and whatever your prep was. Does that make sense? So there's 2 ways of doing that. All you're doing is that topics are your week. And then you're adding information of when you create, you're either creating a topic, so that's for that day or that week, and then you're doing all these things. I love this because if we have a big project coming up and I need students to remember, because it's also again that week, I like using the repost because I don't need to upload yet again all those attachments. I reuse that post to update that we're also working on it on week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. You're adding people here like we've seen, right? You can track progress. Here's what the other piece that I love about the student interest is that you can do all of your grading here, right? And everything defaults is 100. So don't stress out about that. It does that anyways, but you can really adjust this. And then you can, like I still like pen to paper. I would print this out. And then I would go into HomeLink or wherever I'm putting those grades in, and I'm doing those pieces. But this is a mock one, so when you're looking at this, you can do this. Make sure you're checking settings. Our middle school and high school students are very tech savvy. You know what I mean? We know this. They live in the digital era. Make sure that you're using those security sites so that way students can't just, like I have it set so no one but myself can write in these classroom forums, right? So I can put just a reminder, I can put a Flipgrid video link, I can embed a YouTube video, that kind of thing. All right. Let me answer a few questions. Okay, so yeah, all of this will be sent to you because all of these links here that you will have access to will be are a part of my slides, which will be a part of this training as well. Okay. So a couple So this is conceptualization. Depending on your district, you have to work within the means in which they tell you. All of this works well, right? Because I can, when I've team taught cross-curricularly, like when I taught social studies, we did a project-based learning PLC unit for on the continent of Africa, and we also did it with my science partner. You can have more than one person a part of your classrooms if you are doing cross-curricular or team building or anything like this. I created the survey using everything that I'm showing you right now is Google. So I personally, when you're looking at all these things, because a lot of these things keep getting up, here's what I would say. Okay, so communication needs to be clear. We need to make sure that students know what they're doing each week and even break it down to each day. I'm a little more flexible with my students because with the current pandemic, we have a lot of other outlining elements that wouldn't naturally be there, right? All these students wouldn't, right? Our kids aren't used to being home with their siblings 24/7. Oftentimes, we have this parallel of half of our families have people who are working from home, others are out. So I've been doing it by week to give them that flexibility if needed. Does that make sense to everybody? Second thing, I suggest that you get a secondary phone. My personal cell phone is my personal cell phone. I am not someone who text messages my students. I do not. I have a landline that I use. They have a lot of very inexpensive internet-based phones. I use UMA. Some people have done Google phone numbers, those kind of for parent-student contacts. When I am done working, that ringer goes off. Yeah, Google Voice is a great one. We have to create parameters in which students aren't accessing and families aren't accessing us morning, noon, night. When we leave campus, right, we're not having students call us at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I don't text because of nonsense, right? I create those barriers. I don't want a family to text me. I want to talk to them on the phone. I want to dig in deep and relationship build. You guys can pick and make sure you're working within what the districts tell you, because that makes sense. And yeah, so these lists stay current. As long as you have these up, they're up. Give me a smile. Does that make sense to everybody? Can you guys smile at me that makes sense to you? Because if you're late, so say none of you guys did my student information form, right? None of you did. Okay, you're all getting emails that it's not done, even if I put week 2's information. So it'll stay. The reason why I like it done by week is because you can see what's available, what's not. So when you're working, when your students, especially your 7th grade, and I know we have some 6th grade teachers, but when we're thinking about secondary education, we definitely want to teach our students that self-advocacy, the ability to access their materials. But it's very easy for a parent to double check work, a student to double check what's missing, because when they get the email, it'll say week 1, you're missing your student interest form. That child can go to week 1 and do that. Okay, I am adjusting because I want to make sure that I can answer really clearly on all those pieces. Okay. So I have created, this is my real one. So when you're looking in here, like, know that this is the one my students actually use. This is the old version of Google and website. So, typically I like it to be up to date, fresh. You guys saw my welcome letter. I like the newness, but I don't use my Google website. I use the old version. The reason why I do that is because the old version allows me to upload Word documents and PDFs, where the new version wants everything to be in Google Docs, Drive functioning. Here's what I've done. Our students are capable enough and this really creates sanity for families, this is my weekly newsletter, which always, you can open it up. Students can print the individual slide. They can have all of that. I have all of these are just simply things that I would give them, or handouts I have given them, right? Where I've pushed out in class or is on their Google Classroom, or if you have it on a Canvas, because this is separate. This is the digital filing cabinet for things that don't necessarily always fit into your classroom. So let me give you an example. I have students and families who forget things, or, you know, maybe don't have access. So like, here's notebook paper, here's block paper, here is a schedule, right, that they can print out. So those kids who didn't get a planner or parent, right, they're not used to those things, these are available for them to print out and access. So if I'm emailing a student, right, because they asked for it, it's also here. Because what gets lost in translation in the digital platform, and a lot of you guys have used digital tools within your brick and mortar, is the fact that they lose stuff, right? When a kid is absent one day, you guys have where the extra sheets are and they know to go there and get it. My classroom and this website is that availability. And these are living, breathing things to where that's available. So I teach 7th grade this year. So I have some stuff. I put videos. Here's a protractor. I had a student who didn't have one. And so they were able to do those things. For my exceptional populations that need that extra layer of support, those extra tools, number line generator, those kind of things, I also have available for them. And my special ed case manager counterparts also know this is available. So that way they're not searching, hunting, wishing, hoping, trying to figure out where these pieces are. This is why I use it. So think of this as my digital filing cabinet for the classroom. And this is really easy because this is very translatable when you guys re-enter the brick and mortar classroom. Johnny is notorious for forgetting his homework. Having it here too will, right, alleviate when he comes in before class saying, I forgot, here's this, that, and the other thing. Can I do it? Can I get another moment late? Okay. You can add materials to the materials section of Google Classroom. I like this because this can stand alone when Google Classroom falls apart, because that's attached to your work. So the website stands alone. So these are extra supports because I have like the calendar on there and these kinds of things. That's why I do that. And just know all this is these are all just filing cabinets. So and all of these are available for you. Okay. One last, yes.
We've got a quick questions coming in from YouTube, which is how do we access the old website?
Sure. Okay. So when you go to Google Sites, let's see if I can do this right now. So when you go to Sites here, when you press, I'm on Sites here. When you create, it will give you classic or new. I don't like new because new is everything Google. I like classic because you can put whatever you want. A few other things. When we're talking about modifications, right? Most of us are general ed teachers. We do have some SPED, some EL learner individuals in here, and I want to highlight this for you because I have done a lot of intervention in my day as well, and I taught special ed many moons ago. When you're thinking about augmentations or supports, what you're looking at doing is things being exceptionally explicit. So here's a great example of things that I do. The student population that I typically teach is a very wide range, right? I have students who are homeless. I have students who are quite affluent, who are working hard to skip a grade. I have everywhere in between. So socioeconomic status, all of the things, right? All of the factors that we consider when these kids come to us, right? I'm considering as well. One of the things that I love is this. I created a Symbaloo page. Don't worry, you'll have this link. I love this. I've created one for my 10-year-old that you saw, because think of Symbaloo, and it has all the ads, but this is a one-stop shop for all the links your students need to access. So I have a lot because I incorporate a lot of digital supports within my room. Yours would, this is super helpful because you know in your district what is permitted and what is not permitted, right? Things that are blocked. This is fantastic because, and its symbol is right here, you just log in, you sign up, it's free, and all you're doing is attaching these websites as tiles so that it looks like their cell phones for them to be able to access things. So, for example, Kiddle. When I click on Kiddle, here's this. I teach middle school. Some of my middle schoolers haven't quite learned how to search yet. I like Kiddle because when they talk about whales, all they get is blue and gray and other mammals. All that yuck that sometimes can come when students search for something, that's there for them. This is a very easy way. So our special ed populations, our ELL populations, when you want to do audiobook supports and all these other things, having a Symbaloo page for students to point and click where you want them to go is wonderful. This is really easy to do. And when you're seeing it from the student side, but when you log in and do yours, all you're doing is copying and pasting those web addresses exactly where you want them to be. So if you are using Canvas, if you are using any of these other pieces, right, all these on these other platforms, this is a great support piece when incorporating in, especially to help support maintaining those schedules and student access, right? All the time. I don't know where the link is. I don't know where this is. I can't find this. I lost, right? In the same way when you're in the classroom, I don't remember where my textbook is. I don't have a piece of paper. I forgot. I lost my worksheet. All of that is just in this space. Okay. So let me check questions. Yeah, Clever does the same thing. I like Symbaloo because it actually shows whatever emblem the piece is, and because my district doesn't block it. And sometimes they block Clever. Okay. Yes. So my Google Classroom, which is here, has my Google website. When we look at classwork, because this is how you're teaching them, they're going to see the stream of everything you posted. They're going to see anything that's upcoming because it'll show them here. When they go to classwork, they can see all of my stuff in the welcome section. So here's my classroom resources, here's my welcome letter, here's their info sheet, here's their Symbaloo page. I have things in multiple places because just like when you are in your classroom, the textbooks are over there, the beakers are over in the corner, where, right? You have physical placement. I do it in multiple modalities because we're reinforcing this is the tools. right? Your students know you teach them, just like I teach them how to access, you teach them where to turn stuff in, right? In your physical room. When I taught in the classroom, I had baskets per period. Okay, I show them here how to upload and I walk them through it. I show them why we use the symbol page. I show them why we use the classroom resources, because a lot of this extra documentation, especially in live session or in lecture format, can't just naturally go into the classroom, right? I'm not uploading in here as an assignment to each of those things. I can, but I like having it on the website separate, because sometimes kids, when they see it in their classwork, thinking they have to do something with it versus this is just access to. Just like this webinar and all the resources I've provided will also be back on the website where you registered. You're not getting stuff pushed out here, there, and everywhere. Right? And now this is how you're creating procedures and norms, and kids can handle that. So when you have families that are essential workers who don't work in the home, you have ELL learners where the primary language spoken in the home is not English, and so we have issues with literacy and things, right? Our special ed populations who need those extra supports, that they have tools that they know they can go to troubleshoot themselves as secondary students. Same thing with their families, and this is very easy for them to continue to access, and it keeps order and directionality. Okay. Any other questions for right now? I want to make sure that we do that. I make a separate student. So someone asked about like student view of it. Susie Q. A lot of times Hello Kitty is the extra student in the room all the time, because that's my mock student account. That's a really easy way to do that. You can do that on Canvas. You can do that in a lot of Schoolology and all these other ones. Right? Okay, perfect. Okay, let's represent here. All right, so we talked about the classroom. This is how we're setting it up. We're doing these things there. You're checking grades and things. Remember, students are still students. In this, and I know that we're having some presentations tomorrow on highlighting this. I promise you, that you can build strong relationships with your students, because all of the things you're concerned about, right? Kids marking things done, plagiarism, all of these things, those communication, really getting to know the student, you can really do that in digital platforms. You just have to be far more intentional. You will know very quickly, just like I do, right? You know very quickly in the first week of school who's who in your room. What kids are more shy, what kids are eager beavers who want to make sure they know the answer. And everywhere in between. You can tell, right, from your initial calls, you already kind of know what's going on in the family, because you know those red flags go up when you have those 5 families that aren't calling you back, those kinds of things. So be mindful that that's happening. All the issues that we've been having in classes forever are still problems in the digital setting, right? Kids who have lower socioeconomic status, who have less financial security, who don't have access to the same materials as their peers, still had inequities even when they were in the classroom, because those kids could go home and finish that presentation on their Google Doc or whatever, when the others cannot. Cheating happens. Most of our students have phones, period, and they talk to each other. There's still going to be that. You're still going to be conscious of it. But the idea behind it is everyone has access to the internet and Googling and all of the things to find out answers. We as educators as you know, because you guys are doing this, you're building those relationships and you're fostering their desire to learn. Those students who don't, we deal with them disciplinarily. You're going to work with your admin on it. I just want to highlight that for you. You're not going to be, you don't control 90% of their environment anyways, right? Even in your classroom, you miss stuff. We all miss stuff. We can't stare at 35 bodies and hope that they all behave well for the 45 minutes they're in front of you. You're going to be doing the same thing. There's going to be kids that mess around, because there's kids that mess around, because we're public school. We take everybody. Don't hang your hat on. You have to put in all the measures in place to do whatever you can. You know how to do this. You know how to set up procedures. You know how to tell when someone plagiarizes. The beauty of the digital classroom is that you have documentation, because you can put it in things like turnitin.com or whatever your school uses. Document, document, document. The beautiful thing about Classroom and Canvas is that everything's time-stamped. And don't fixate on all those other things. There are tools and resources. No one chose for the entire world to stop because we're in a global pandemic. It's not the same thing, right? Kids, you know, my students are virtual students most of the time. They do it by choice. I have a very wide range of reasons. I have students that are, right, medically fragile. I have students that are exceptional who are, you know, in film industry and active in sports and things like that. It doesn't matter, because no one's getting to do anything that they like. So we need to be somewhat more flexible, and just know that we're still trying to encourage students to be lifelong learners, right? We're still trying to make our materials come alive for them to understand that you're right, you don't like math because it's been hard for you, but let me show you all the reasons why you should. Like I did one where I was like, okay, we're gonna landscape my front yard, friends. And we were talking, and we were in our geometry unit, we talked about area and perimeter and volume, because I have this giant tree I need to get rid of, right? And they find meaning in that because they're seeing the purpose behind that. You guys are experts. You do this in the classroom all the time. You're just translating that to the explicitness that occurs by writing it down in digital documents, or videoing yourself and embedding those in, or doing that in live sessions. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about teaching time. We're starting to get short on time, and I really want to talk about these different options, because not everyone's running the same way, and sometimes you do both. So based on whatever your district's telling you, perhaps an MOU that your union and the district are working on, you could have a myriad of some of these things. Synchronous teachings. If you are teaching live, you need to be teaching the same time each day, each week, for whatever time period that is. Just like students know, right? Every week is the same. I go to third period at the same time every day, but the minimum day. They know those things, right? You guys have an in-service day. Technically, it's a minimum day because you're doing progress reports or what have you. That's fine. But for the majority of it, don't be switching these around, because your schedule will become their schedule. They will be able to manage. Families who are at home trying to deal with 4 or 5 different kiddos who are all distance learning together need that same teaching time, because that also tells you when you're available, right? When your office hours are, when your extra support pieces. Put it on a Google Calendar if you need to. I just send it as a, you know, like these are when the sessions are, and I have it scheduled for those times. You can put that in Google Classroom, and I know Canvas has a calendar as well. That's really helpful. Asynchronous teaching. One of the things that we all worry about is our students not actually looking at this hard, beautiful thing we created, right? So what I do is I do a due date for viewing, same time each week, because if they're missing it, it's always for a reason, right? I had students who, because of a family situation, they had their cousins with them. So like the schedule got weird. And so, you know, my students' access time was like 6 to 8 o'clock at night for a while. So that's why I do it per week, because if they're missing your session, there's always something up, and they're going to need to be creative in scheduling those times. So what I do is I do a due date for viewing. I typically do an exit ticket, do a survey, say something in the middle towards the end of the video. where they have to watch the whole video. And then I say, the magic word for today is unicorns. So when you give the exit ticket, maybe the only question you're asking, what is the magic word for today? They had to watch the whole video to get it. And then they would write unicorns. And if they get it wrong, then you know that, or they didn't finish it, then they didn't get that attendance recaptured, since we are doing daily attendance. And this is just another option. And I am really mellow about it. I have a little binder, and I just write, and I have a calendar, and every day on that calendar for my teacher planner, I put the magic word for the day. Right? So I hope this helps, because it will help you. You know, I know the hyperventilation is ADA, right? We are taking attendance, we are holding students accountable, but we also have to be, we're public school friends, we take everybody. We have to be understanding that family dynamics, and from those initial calls, from those surveys, from talking with your students, from following up when they're missing, you're going to know what's going on with them. And this is a beautiful secondary way, because you could even do it in your synchronous teachings. I could say at the end of the class what the password is for the day. The kids can fill out the exit tickets. I've just taken attendance. I can also do that for my entrance ticket, right? My warm up for the day, right, is like, what's the nickname? I can have them do that. I use things like Go Formative. We do a survey, any of those things where that will capture who has attendance for the day because they've come to class. If you need it where a student is really struggling and they're turning things in, that can be another way you can earn attendance. Make sure you're working with your admin and things, but these are things that you can do in real time with your teaching if you're having to take attendance, to have that available for you. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to transition out of what I'm talking about, but I'm still leaving just a few minutes to answer questions. That's on purpose. So I wanted to show you. So Adam was talking, he's going to have these slides up. Here is all the hyperlinks. I have my Google Classroom link. Please know this is my actual Google Classroom that I actually really use. So if you're looking at what this is, that's why there's things already on there. My Google Classroom demo, that's there for you, right? And then the recording you could see, and we can always go back and make sure you can get that code. That's also in the slides, because when I took a picture of the Google Classroom, it has that login in the slides so you can play around. My Symbaloo page, which is embedded in my Google Classroom if you want to see that separately, Symbaloo in general. And then SafeTube Generator. Lots of you guys are using SafeTV. I like SafeTube Generator because it will do it for not just YouTube videos. So anything that's on the internet that you want a student to watch, a clip, a video, I like SafeTube Generator because I can both embed it into Google Classroom and or I can send them just the link for whatever it is. SafeTube Generate does not matter, right? If I just want them to look at one Khan Academy video, not the 5 that come after it, because I have a student who even after my one-to-one session, when we're looking at distributive property, is not understanding it, then I can give them that link and it's just the one video. That's super important. That's why I use this one and not other ones, because especially with our exceptional populations and our students who are really struggling, you can be teaching and instructing and retelling them till you're blue in the face and it might not click in. But so you do your reteaching with them, you do, let's teach in a different way, and then you use those generators where you can be very explicit. I want you to only look at this, this, and this. And so these are all available for you to be viewing, looking, reviewing, getting an idea. All right, with that being said, let's start looking at, and Adam, you can chime in if we have other questions. So yes, I use both a Google Classroom and Google Sites. I am an open book when it looks at academics if parents need to view as well. That is absolutely fine with me, especially as well as peer groups, right? I want my RSP teachers, I want my ELL interventionists, I want everyone to be able to, if a principal, if a parent's calling and saying, you know, I even give it to my principal saying, where there's, you know, parents saying, I don't know where Miss Cordero put this, everyone can see everything I'm doing. So, and it makes it really nice because there's not, being that transparent and forward in that communication creates that consistency and accountability because I'm building relationships. I care about you so much. I have these resources I'm doing all the time. I do use rules and expectations. Typically, I have a format of what I do, but typically I do something where I have the students, especially when we're looking at our older students, I have them do it with me, right? I need the buy-in from the get-go. We're going to talk about how we're going to behave in this safe space, which is what I lead by it. I have the students collaborate on a whiteboard and actually write it out, and then we vote and narrow it down, and that becomes our norms. And that's not only because I need that buy-in from our older students, right? There's some stuff we add because I say, well, I'm Miss Cordero and you're living in my world, so I'm going to add a few things, but it's really beneficial to have that buy-in because that way they know. My student, I don't have it all the time. I don't have that accessible all the time where we're reviewing it every class period, just like you wouldn't if you were in the classroom, but you definitely can be doing that. And I make like a poster and we'll put it on the website, but I don't have one right now because I do that organically with students. Yeah, Screencastify is great. Microsoft Teams works very similar.
And maybe just time for one or two more questions.
Yes. Okay, so one of the things that you notice that we think about it is that as a teacher with functioning, so you guys, we've kind of gone through all these pieces of what you could possibly do and conceptualize. Just know, if you don't know how to do something in Google Classroom, if you go on YouTube, there is a video going to be about Zoom, going to be about Canvas, going to be about Screencastify. There's so many how-tos right now because with everything shutting down and a lot of these resources, especially like Microsoft Teams and things, businesses are using, so that's really beneficial. That you're going to be able to answer some of those questions on how they translate. Some of the reason why I can't answer those things is because I don't know for your local district what is accessible and what is not. Does that make sense? For example, I love Kiddle. We use Kiddle on our personal computers. Kitty's school doesn't allow it. So it's not possible to use that because their school has that blocked because the kids can act too many videos is what the reasoning behind it. The kids are getting distracted, but that's why. Okay, so thinking about day to day, you guys know how to plan. Lots of us, we're secondary educators. We do a ton with PowerPoint. We do a lot with dot cameras. There is, I mean, if you've been on any of our Facebook, like with the CTA, any of the Facebook pages, they have those there. Here's what I do. I create an initial call sheet where I just put down all the basics. You have those in your repertoire, right? You can look up, when you look up your students in HomeLink, I'm going to use HomeLink as an example, whatever that functioning, you can have their name, their address, their phone number, right? You know what class they're in, and then I document things. So if, say, I'm going to use Adam as the example. If Adam's really chatty in class today, I'm writing a post-it down as we're talking. I'm going to continue live teaching. I'm going to make sure his stuff is muted. And then I'm going to just stick it on that piece of paper in my binder where Adam's name is. And I'm not going to worry about right now. Just like when you make a note when you're in live session, right? You know, like I remember the kids would have detention with me. I would never send them for attention. And my consequence was like, at first I write your name and then I write what you did. And if I fill this out, you get that slip. Same concept. Having those written down, because you, my friends, are also in a global pandemic. You're not going to be able to recall, remember, and adjust. And if you document your students' information like that, right? Making attendance sheets really quick. There's tons of blanks everywhere. All you have to do is Google. Writing, having a quick call sheet so you know which groupings that you have that are there for you. Having a piece of paper with the basic information of your students that you are working with, right? First, last name, phone number, date of birth, email, parent's name, or guardian's name, that's it. You can find that on whatever mechanism you learn your student roster. HomeLink's just one of the examples of it, right? If you guys use Aries, I don't know, whatever platform that is. That is super beneficial. Looking at your student surveys, I write notes. Those notes are just for me, right? You know, because when you're talking to your students, you know, in the classroom, you know which students are in foster care youth, right? When you were in the classroom, you knew that. Some of that's from Aries. Some of it is, oh, you know, I'm noticing that, you know, Johnny's not sleeping. Those kind of things. You notice those things. I'm just having you write them down because we are in a pandemic. You're not going to be able to remember things as well. Having that extra layer of support is going to build those connections, because you're going to remember that Johnny loves Star Wars, right? So when you get your update that the Mandalorian's been updated and he gets more Baby Yoda time, you're going to build that relationship. Hey, did you watch the new episode? Even if you haven't, all because you did that in the classroom anyways. Instead of just mentioning to that, you're typing it in a chat. You're bringing it up at the end of class. Those kinds of things. That's the same way to build those pieces. I know we're right at the end of time. I wanted to add this extension activity, and then Adam's going to take it away. So if you want to work on your own idea, whatever that platform is, right? Because I'm not able to utilize some of those resources, you are more than welcome to email me. That is my email here at Gmail if you need ideas, or you just want to, you know, show another person, because as we shelter in place, I always get excited when I finish something. That's there for you. This is something that would be really beneficial to take what we talked about today and apply it to whatever tools you have in your tool belt. And if you need something from me, here's my email where we can follow up and do that as well. Please take advantage of all of the myriad of and beautiful resources we have out there. If you're struggling with sites, if you're struggling with Zoom, if you're struggling with whatever platform, please check those out, because those things can get answered in real time. And a lot of them are done by the people who created the program, which is much better access than a bunch of teachers trying to get together going, well, here's my Zoom thing and here's my thing. And it'll alleviate a lot of that stress. So thank you guys so much for your time. And I'm going to let Adam take it away.
Thank you so much, Anna. I have been watching the YouTube stream. I have been watching the Q&A, and I have seen just an outpouring of gratitude for your words of wisdom, having kind of walked this path before. And I've also seen just an incredible amount of teachers helping teachers, right? I have seen like questions come up and be answered with links and with resources, and it's pretty remarkable. So I just wanted to thank you, Anna. I wanted to thank all of you out there. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what's coming up next. All right, so we have a full schedule of events, right? This is a 2-week event. We have building classroom connection and culture coming up tomorrow, same time, 3:30 to 4:30. You'll get an 8 a.m. email tomorrow from me that just gives you a little bit about our presenters, about the information. You can add those events directly to your calendar. It'll take you to the same place, the online events page. Moving into distance learning pedagogy, tiered engagement, and social emotional learning. The second week is focused on culturally relevant pedagogy, collaboration, ELD, special education, and then focusing on our homeless and unstably housed students and how we can support them in this new setting. So last page. Tomorrow, secondary, 3:30 to 4:30, we're going to hear from Instructional Leadership Corps members Myra Deister, from a high school and math and computer science teacher, and then Kristen Morales, a high school teacher and tech coach. They're awesome. I've been looking at their slides. They look great, and they're just fantastic presenters. So we hope to see you tomorrow. And then last slide, I just want to, this question has come up a lot. So everything is on the online events page. There's one link. That is the only link. After you register for the sessions and register for the Eventbrite, you can access all of the videos. So we will post the video of this after the fact on that online events page. You can access the resources. We'll post a PDF of these slides. You can access the session feedback form, you see right there, as well as a certificate of completion. If you are a CTA member, just complete one short reflection per session. That's all going to consolidate in the same spreadsheet. And then once this series is over, we will shoot you a certificate with that accounts for all the sessions that you attended. So with that, I thank you, Anna. I thank you so much. And we hope to see you tomorrow. Please feel free to continue the conversation on CTA Facebook, and especially the COVID-19 page. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you for what you do. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure to be working with you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week.